The leading association of genocide scholars has declared that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza based off the pure definition of...
The question is not whether some sort of coterie of people are quote-unquote experts on the issue. The question is whether the definition is met. The definition of genocide is not met in Gaza by any stretch of the imagination.
This nigga is on Breakfast Club, a mainstream radio station, saying that there's not a genocide going on when we're watching this shit in 4K. We got 911 calls of kids crying as they're sitting there bleeding out, surrounded by tanks, real time. So here he gives his comments on the Breakfast Club.
You don't think what's happening in Gaza is a genocide?
Correct.
Okay, but the world...
Of course, a very thing for him to say that it's not a genocide when every single expert and researcher and scholar says that what's going on is a genocide. And here's the other thing too, you guys got to understand. When you kill a group of people, in part, it's still a genocide. You don't have to totally eradicate all of them to be considered a genocide, okay? We've seen other world conflicts where world leaders went to prison for way less, by the way.
The leading association of genocide scholars has declared that Israel is committing genocide.
Smartest thing Charlemagne said.
In Gaza, based off the pure definition of...
Well, it's not actually, if you read their actual study, it's not based on the quote-unquote pure definition of genocide. They don't actually even define genocide in the document.
No, that's a lie. It absolutely is defined. It's the elimination of a group of people in whole or in part. That's a critical component to the definition of genocide. Just lying.
And they basically went out to their membership, but they didn't go out to the entire membership. They went out to generic membership. It is very easy to join the International Association of Genocide Scholars. In fact, there were several people yesterday who just signed up and were immediately admitted, even though they have no actual background in genocide. The question is not whether some sort of coterie of people who call themselves experts in an issue are quote-unquote experts on the issue. The question is whether the definition is met. The definition of genocide is not met in Gaza by...
100% it's met, dude. 100% it's met. We're talking about the killing of hundreds of thousands of people. You know what's funny? You know what's funny, chat? He's over here denying a genocide occurring real time in front of our eyes, right? But if I were to say, hey, nigga, it wasn't no... I can go to jail for that in 19 different countries. But this nigga is on Breakfast Club, a mainstream radio station, saying that there's not a genocide going on when we're watching this shit in 4K. I told you guys the story about Hind Rajab. They shot up her car 350 times. 350 times. When she called for help, they came and they blew up the ambulance. And this dude is saying that it's not a genocide going on. I told you guys a story and I showed you guys all the evidence of them systemically starving these people. You got these dumb bar agents, right? Like the black dude from PragerU, I forget his name, saying, oh, look at all this aid. Look at all this aid here. They're not distributing it, so they're still starving them.
Fatality.
The you talking about? Look at all this aid here. Yeah, it's not getting distributed. What the is this aid gonna do sitting in a lot spoiling and shit? That's what the Israelis do. Hey, look, there's not a genocide going on. Meanwhile, I'm showing you guys real time in 1080p. They blow up a building. The aid workers go in to get the bodies out the rubble. Then they blow it up again. But these will sit there and tell y'all that they're not doing a genocide and we're watching it with our own eyes. But then they got the nerve to get mad and say, when you say some shit like, oh, you know what, bro? I don't know if everything that we got told about World War II is true, bro. Meanwhile, these dudes are genocide deniers with irrefutable proof in 4K. Do you not see the wildness there? We got 911 calls of kids crying as they're sitting there bleeding out, surrounded by tanks, real time. And this nigga's over here on Breakfast Club. Oh, this doesn't satisfy the definition of genocide. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. There's other war criminals that have been convicted for way less. What you talking about? We got 60,000 documented dead, with 83% of those people being civilians. That doesn't count for the people in the rubble. That doesn't count for the people that are starved. That doesn't count for the people that died from diseases from the conflict. Because you go on big platforms like this and say that there's not a genocide going on to cover for the regime of Netanyahu. Why? Because Benjamin Netanyahu and Ben Shapiro are close personal friends, if you guys didn't know already.
Welcome, punch!
So he goes in and talks with these ass niggas because they don't know anything about foreign policy. These dudes are more concerned with young thug snitching than kids getting blown up. So these dumbass niggas don't know what to say. He goes in there, oh, it's not a genocide, actually. Charlemagne thought he was going to get him. He couldn't get him because Charlemagne and all these other dumb in there are more concerned with stupid hip-hop affairs than what is really going on in the world. Bro, Man. Bro is in here spreading the Hasbara. Nobody knows better.
By any stretch of the imagination, and right to me, a group that I hadn't heard of until 2 seconds ago, and nobody had heard of until 2 seconds ago, that voted in a particular way. That doesn't make a difference definitionally.
So what is a genocide to you?
A genocide is the attempt to forcibly destroy an entire population.
Or in part.
Which is not what has happened.
Notice how he left that part out. Left that part out for obvious reasons.
So it's not the attacks on like the personal facilities needed for like survival, like healthcare and educational institutions.
Well, again, Israel has shipped in more humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip than literally any army.
Okay, that's irrelevant because the aid doesn't get to the people because they don't distribute it. Bringing it to the Gaza Strip and not allowing it to get to the people doesn't count.
To a population that supports the enemy in literally all of human history. They've been shipping in about 4.
Here's the official definition of a genocide, guys, that Ben Shapiro is refusing to admit. An act committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. There it is. Pretty black and white, isn't it? Pretty black and white, isn't it?
4,400 calories per day per person into the Gaza Strip in the middle of a war in which the enemy is holding.
Is that why the Israelis say that they're going to put the Palestinians on a diet all the time? Ben? Is that why they say that? They say all the time, we're going to put the Palestinians on a diet.
Actual Israeli hostages underground who, as we've seen from some of the
as they restrict aid
pictures, are actually starving.
Bruh. All right, so that's his denial of the genocide. Now we're going to get into U.S. foreign assistance, right? Which we discussed earlier with Suleiman.
At any job, democracy where the best people at any job get ahead. Now, if you're talking about reparations for immediate past wrongs, I think it's a much easier conversation. So I think that if you're in 1968, 1970, and you're talking about what can we do to rectify the problems of Jim Crow and make it right for the people who suffered under Jim Crow, I think that's a really live and interesting conversation, and I think that it's totally worth having. I think that on a sort of public policy level, reparative policies don't tend to be nearly as effective as people want them to be, historically speaking.
They work for Jewish people.
In what way?
Jewish people have received reparations.
You mean Holocaust reparations, for example, from Germany? So I think that first of all, that there was like a gigantic fight actually in Israel over whether Holocaust survivors should accept reparations from Germany, because the idea was that it's allowing them to expiate their sins of the past, and they shouldn't be allowed to expiate those sins, and it's allowing them to sort of buy off the history for 50 grand or whatever it is. But that is not the reason why Israel has become successful economically. Like just on a success level, the reality is that cutting people checks rarely makes them more successful from the government. What
Yep, makes them more lazy. First thing you said, that's correct.
usually makes people more successful is a determined attempt to become the things that the meritocracy demands of you. Right, so there were no long
I do
scale.
think the U.S. foreign assistance for Israel has helped financially.
Well, I mean, the U.S. foreign assistance for Israel actually is a bargain for the United States because Israel doesn't need the money. I've said this before.
Bruh.
Or
Well,
Israel,
give it to us.
I mean,
we'll take it.
that's fine.
The black community would gladly take it.
That's in it.
I can't speak for everybody.
Israel does need the money because it goes to arms spending, which is what Israel needs it for, because Israel cannot properly defend itself without America's assistance. This is a fact.
It's like $3 billion a year. We should point out at this point that we spend.
It's way more than that because that's just what we overtly hand over. There's far more things that cost money, like I was explaining before. Every time Israel's, and we gave them like $12 billion this year, by the way. So that's bullshit what he's saying. We've already exceeded that significantly. And not only that, but this doesn't account for all the money that we spend to help them with their air defense. The fact that we have to constantly position U.S. aircraft carriers in strategic locations to assure their safety, which costs millions of dollars to reposition these things, by the way. Not millions, billions of dollars to reposition. So what, did we calculate it to like 6.2 or 7.2 trillion? The war on terror, which let's be honest here, the war on terror has been beneficial to only Israel. Bro.
Spend, I think, $6 billion a year on our military bases in Japan, $5 billion a year on our military bases in Germany. We spend an awful lot of money. That helps an awful lot of other countries. Israel has to spend all of that money, by the way, in the United States on military product. So all of the money that we send to, we actually don't send money to Israel. We send military product to Israel that is made in the United States. And so it actually is a subsidy to the
Yeah, they don't have to pay it back.
American defense industry. And there is a deal with Israel where Israel does intelligence sharing and also develops its own tech.
Okay, we don't need their intel. Us getting intel from them is directly because we support them. They're collecting intel on their enemies, which are now our enemies because Israel exists in the first place.
and can't disseminate it to the world. So, for example, the helmets that our F-35 pilots use, those are Israeli developed helmets, like that we can see over the horizon, for example. That's because Israel developed technological add-ons. So the idea that this is sort of like a zero sum, the money goes out, we get nothing back, that's actually not true. You can make the argument that foreign aid entirely should be zeroed out. I think that is not a particularly useful argument, just because sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. Like I'm by the way, in favor of assistance to Ukraine to prevent Russia from taking over Ukraine. This represents a
The only reason he has that position, Chad, is because you cannot have that position without also saying we need to defend Israel. He does not have that position against Ukraine for Ukraine's benefit. He has it because he saw Patrick Bet-David fumble royally when asked this question by Piers Morgan. It went viral because Patrick Bet-David said in an interview, oh, we should stop giving money to Ukraine. He said, okay, so why don't you have that line of thinking with Israel? And Patrick Bet-David literally was speechless. Let me go ahead and show you guys this so you guys know I'm not capping here. Here we go. I think this is it.
Supposed to be a grandmaster. Your number one move should be protect your border, not Ukraine. If you're saying let's worry about Ukraine, maybe it's number 9 on the list. It ain't number 1 above the border. That is the most ludicrous argument I would ever make.
Well, let me ask you this.
We have to take care of America
let me ask you this.
Then we take care of everybody else.
Why should America be supporting Israel then? That's thousands of miles away.
Ooh. All right, let's hear his answer.
How much money are we giving to Israel?
Billions.
How much money are we giving Israel? I'm curious. Go ahead. I'm curious. Go ahead. Are we sending troops over there?
Yeah, come on, bro. You know how much money we're giving these niggas, man. Come on, bro.
Are we sending missiles over there?
No, but
how much money are we giving to
America
Israel? I know
does
the
spend,
dome we've given it since 1945. I think $10 billion we've given to them. $3 billion is towards the dome.
Yeah.
How much money are we giving them?
Billions of dollars.
Not comparable to what we've given to Ukraine in 12 months. 24 months? No way. Not even close.
Isn't the principle the same? You're doing it to help them defend themselves.
No, it's not. The part with Israel is slightly different because it's both strategic, because there's only one country in Israel that has historically always been pro-America and has been an ally.
Saudi Arabia is an ally. Qatar is an ally. All these Gulf state countries are allies of America. What?
In the Middle East, and that's Israel. Iran's not been the case since the Shah, right? Saudi Arabia now with MBS, he's trying to work and make progress to the point where Ronaldo, your friend, feels safe going out there with his family to play soccer there. These are good things that MBS and Saudi Arabia is doing. He's kind of doing what the Shah was doing back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. I like what he's doing with Saudi Arabia. But Israel, to us, a part of it is also loyalty due to our faith, where we need that.
Yeah, cooked. Absolutely cooked.
Country, especially what America was founded on, Judeo-Christian, that's a little bit deeper than that. But with Ukraine, the guy's an opportunistic guy. Respect to him that's coming up to America, making everybody feel guilty and raising money. I salute him for.
All right, where are we at here? So he's talking about how we don't give them that much aid. And like I said before, the reason why he's taking this position that he's supporting Ukraine is because he saw Patrick Bet-David get embarrassed by not supporting Ukraine, but supporting Israel. So Ben Shapiro is smart enough to know that even though he doesn't give a about Ukraine, he understands that if he doesn't support Ukraine, his argument for defending Israel is going to be destroyed, okay?
Bombakat!
So that's why he supports Ukraine. So he doesn't, because guys, this clip went really viral and it made PBD look really bad. As a matter of fact, I would make the argument that this clip going viral is what kind of started people putting pressure on PBD for his allegiance to Israel. This clip right here started it, because this thing went viral when it first dropped last year. I'll never forget, I was in LA when it happened.